There's a lot we can do today to stay fit and healthy for a long time. Longevity clinics, longevity therapeutics, longevity online consultations are springing up like mushrooms. Not everything that is offered there is serious. Age diagnostics, how do you do it reliably? How is it evaluated? Which therapies are really effective? Anyone can call themselves longevity clinic. So how can you separate the good from the bad? Which clinic can you trust? That's what the first international roundtable of longevity clinics at the renowned Buck Institute for Aging Research in California was all about. I'm now talking to a co-organizer. This is Joanna Bensz, the founder and CEO of Longevity Center. Hi, Joanna.
Hello. Very nice to meet you. Very nice to be here.
Everyone who seeks care from a longevity clinic has to pay for it privately and wants to be sure that it is worth. I assume your roundtable wants to give people this guidance?
Yes, this was our main purpose actually, to bring together different clinics that are focusing on longevity medicine or medicine focusing on longevity, on the fact that we are living longer and anything that it's influencing our healthy longevity. And to see actually, first of all, to really see who is doing what, how do we do it, what is the client's journey for in all those clinics, what kind of services, tests and diagnostics are already used in the clinics that are there for already a while or for many years, some of them. And what should be actually some kind of a standard, which today doesn't yet exist, both for diagnostics, but also for interventions. And as you said, because this is a private sector, like most of the clinics that were there were actually private clinics, which means that the client has to pay, which means that the client also is expecting the highest quality of service, or at least expects that everything is validated. And I think this was a very, we are in a very important moment because, as you rightly said, there is a lot of clinics and centers that are being opened that are called clinics, but they are not even medical. And so we believe it was a very timely meeting as well to start setting certain best practices and standards for the sector.
So there are so many longevity clinics. They are calling themselves longevity clinic, but they are not. What criteria did you use to select them to take part?
I selected some of the companies that we trust already or that collaborating either with the Buck Institute or that have really a strong name in the market. I have also invited a few experienced practitioners to our advisory board. So not only Dr. Eric Verdin, president of the Buck Institute, but also Professor Andrea Myers. She is very well known in the field of longevity, both as a scientist, but also as a practicing doctor. She's also heading the association that started last year as well, that is really focusing on longevity medicine. Together with Evelyn Bishop, who was our other advisor, and also David Karov. David is CEO and president of Human Longevity, a well-known clinic based in San Diego. And so together we were selecting a group of clinics, experts, and advisors that we believed would be actually best for this first meeting to really see who is doing what and what should be the criteria. So this is where, let's say, we are still in the starting place here.
But you're also competitors. You're really open-minded to give you a counsel or to learn from each other in this new field. Do they do that, really?
And I am coming, from my background, in my past, I was also vice president of the American Chamber of Commerce in Poland. And I could see that you can have a lot of different competitors coming together for certain cause that unites them. And we see it also here. There was definitely a chamber or an organization missing or a platform where we can meet and safely discuss who is doing what, but also what do we need as a sector? Because this is slowly developing as a very interesting sector to grow and to stay. So we are at the intersection of precision medicine, performance medicine, sport medicine, and of course longevity science and age science. And so there's a lot of companies that have been active in some areas of those expertise for many years, like Cleveland Clinic, Cooper Clinic. They were doing longevity medicine without calling it longevity medicine, or they were focusing on health span and prevention and personalized medicine rather than reactive medicine and primary care. So there was definitely a lot to learn from each other of what is already there, and also what can we learn from, what kind of results can we see based on, for example, the biomarkers that some of those clinics are already using for many years. So despite the fact that we are competitors, we are more competitors there because we see more added value in actually having a united front in certain areas or doing joint research. And I think now there's going to be more and more as well areas that we will jointly decide to collaborate than to compete. Despite the fact that we are competitors, there are not too many longevity clinics in the world. So at the end of the day, the client will decide whether they will go to San Diego, or they will go to Zurich, or they will go to New York. And then it's the markets also deciding on who is doing a better job. We might use very similar diagnostics or even the same diagnostics, but we will present it in a different way. We will have different interventions. We will have, our doctors would be trained slightly different, maybe in terms of how to work with clients. Some of the clinics will only specialize in diagnostics because this is where they feel the strongest. And some of us want to do also interventions, but also to remeasure whether they work or they don't work and how they work. So at the end of the day, I think it's the market that is going to decide whether we are competitors or not. And there's definitely a lot we can do together to make sure that longevity clinics are well understood and that we are operating in a safe environment.
But there are no gold standard yet. There is no gold standard yet and no certification concerning diagnostics and also interventions. We need them urgently, but nobody has.
No, and this is a very important point. For doctors, when they are doing their training, it's very important for them to have certain guidelines and certain, as you said, golden standards that they need to follow. And some of them exist, but they exist in the reactive medicine. And in this area of medicine, actually, we are just working on that. And I would say every clinic has their own standards that they follow. Not every, but the clinics that should have standards, they really focus on making sure that the standards are placed and followed also by all their doctors. So this is definitely an area that has a big need. Certain standards for doctors also are being developed at the same time with this Healthy Longevity Association for Longevity Medicine that Professor Myers and Professor Bishop have started. But this is directly for doctors. What I was missing was really guidelines for longevity clinic owners and clinic managers. So there is no standards, but there's definitely a lot of, which doesn't mean that we are not following standards. We are still following standards that there is in medicine, but definitely in terms of the use of the new biomarkers, the use of interventions that are becoming more and more available. Those gold standards need to be set or agreed upon, and I think this is one of the targets that we have with this roundtable and everything we are planning to do with the International Institute of Longevity.
Yeah. And the people in United States, Fountain Life was also, it's a clinic which presented.
Yes.
5 clinics in the US, then Delhi, Dubai, Toronto, also this Chic clinic in Singapore, 1 clinic in Warsaw, yours, and then in Zurich. So people in US and Asia are closer to use this longevity clinic treatments than in Europe?
Well, Europe is more regulated on one side, which is good and bad. It's also good because it makes sure that everything is safe. But therefore, I'm very focusing. For me, the procedures and also standards are very important, because we have to remember that we are in a new area of medicine, which possibly preventive medicine and functional medicine had to go through the same challenges earlier. Now we have doctors that are coming from a normal doctor training, so they're going through normal medical schools, and of course in some countries they might be even afraid that there is certain risk for their license or the way they practice medicine. So we have to make sure that the standards very clear and very unique across the board, so that we can attract a lot of more good quality doctors into this field, so that they can practice and learn and want to actually practice longevity medicine and focus on longevity medicine. Like, we see that some of the best solutions, they don't have to be in just one location. We use more or less the same standards and the same diagnostics as my colleagues in the US or in Singapore, because the number of biomarkers that are available today is limited, and also the providers that are there, that are validated and trustworthy, are also global. So we all use the same diagnostics, from epigenetic clocks to glycan age, for example. Glycan age is from Croatia. They are used in clinics from West Coast, UK, Singapore, China, or Australia. So it doesn't mean that we have to be somehow limited by a location, but it's true that in Europe we have many less longevity clinics than in other locations. But we have a lot of preventive medicine, and there's a lot of doctors shifting from preventing medicine, going a step further into longevity, because they already looked at the human health in a more systemic way, through the lens of functional medicine, integrative medicine, or lifestyle medicine. So it's much easier to transition for them into longevity medicine than doctors that have worked in hospitals, for example, and only reacting on emergencies.
Let's look at the biomarkers, which ones are really meaningful. Eric Verdun, he gave also a talk about the epigenetic clock. Everybody's using the epigenetic clock, and he's warning, be aware, what is she measuring? How reliable is the epigenetic clock? And for so many clinics, it's so important. Tell me your insights.
And exactly to Eric's point, we know that epigenetic clocks measure something, but there are different epigenetic clocks, and they seem to be measuring different things. So this is why for the customer, and this is another reason why we need to compare notes and discuss how we can use those biomarkers in comparison with everything else, all the other tests that we are doing. Because most of the clinics, and especially the reliable clinics, as you referred at the beginning, they really have to look at the standardized medicine and really the normal standards in medicine, like blood tests or different. We have densitometry, we have also arterial stiffness, we have many more standardized medical tests that are in preventive medicine. And then we compare it with those biomarkers of epigenetic age or other biological clocks. But we don't use just the clocks because they are not yet validated enough in terms of the medical use. And we can't really say that they tell us everything about the current state of health. They don't. They do in as part of the whole set of other markers that we are doing. And therefore, there is a lot to learn for doctors because there's just no one marker that measures everything today. And from the conference and also some of the scientific presentations, even Eric's or Andreas, it doesn't seem that there is going to be just one biomarker for a long time. We had also some various team speakers, like, for example, Dr. Lee Hood, and he's very much into phenome health. So there will be different ways how we are going to be looking at measuring the quality of health. In his case, he's the father of P4 medicine, system-based biology. So there is a lot of learnings that we need to bring together, and it's really about finding the right set of biomarkers and not just one biomarker. Another thing with epigenetic clocks or most of the biological agents, they are not medical devices, and they might not be for a long time. Some of them, I think epigenetic clocks has the biggest potential of becoming a medical device, but this is not happening at the moment. I don't know of any of them yet that would be a medical device. But in the hands of doctors, similarly to all the trackers for sleep, stress, exercise, they're also not medical devices. But they are very useful tools to give the customer, to give the doctor additional information about different aspects, different levels of your health. Some of them are focusing on really measuring your stress level, your psychological health, your emotional health, and some of them are focusing only on your physical baseline. So therefore, we are looking at those biomarkers. We are also looking at all the biological ages and see how we can best correlate them with hormonal health, with metabolic health, with health of different organs, for example. What do they really tell us today, and how we can best correlate it? So this is the discussions that need to happen, I think, in the next months and possibly years.
But people who would like to decide, I will join the longevity center or I will go to the human longevity clinic, they want to know which biomarkers are really important. So what can I check when I look at the sites of the longevity centers or clinics? Which biomarkers have to be offered by these clinics? I saw at the human longevity clinic, they do the full genome diagnostics, they do the total body MRI, they do the metabolome measuring, they do the cardiac test, they do a broad clinical blood test. Will this be the gold standard you have to be keen on?
Definitely everything you just mentioned, this is some of the diagnostics that definitely should be taken into consideration. Most of us do that. And again, a lot of them also to be found in preventive medicine clinics and in really gold standards for medicine. And what we also, and also the clinics that were on stage, for example, we had this roundtable led by Eric summarizing the whole event. And it was David Caro from Human Longevity. It was also representatives from Cleveland Clinic and Fountain Life and myself. And we want to invite also next time many more clinics that we believe are following responsible medicine, because everything else has to actually start from there. And most of us actually had very similar diagnostics. But at the end of the day, again, our recommendations might be slightly different. But also with all those diagnostics, because they're all important, because there's no one test today that would tell you that you are in a perfect health. It's not your sugar level, it's not your cholesterol, it's not only your blood markers, it's the combination of different factors. And this is really very interesting in this field and also in medicine, that we are exposed to, we have so many tests and potential to measure different things, from the health of each and every organ separately, to also all the less tangible tests like HRV and stress and sleep. And first combination of all of them and bringing them all together gives us actually the real baseline of your health and also the quality of your health today and results and of your interventions that you are implementing. So what is really needed is some of those gold standards from medicine that you just mentioned that I use, but also some of the new biomarkers like biomarkers of biological aging, because the typical standards like MRI or microbiome, they will not tell us how we age in time or what is our pace of aging today. The biological ages will. But there's, again, no one biological age that will tell you everything. The ideal scenario is really to use a number of those biological ages because we know that our different parts of the body are aging in different pace. So our skin ages differently, our organs are aging differently. So we really need to look at all those aspects. Therefore, if you are to select a clinic that you want to see, you need to make sure that, first of all, they do also responsible medicine, that they have medical doctors. And this is really important because some of the clinics don't have medical doctors. And that really, this is actually a medical aspect. And then they do not only the medical test, but also they do biological ages. There was a very interesting, I don't know whether you also have noticed that a few days ago on longevity technology, Phil Newman published the results of his survey that he did with 51, he calls longevity clinics, or clinics that aim to be longevity, where he was asking them different questions of what kind of tests do they use, what is really important. So we also presented during our roundtable results of the survey. And one of the questions was that whether to be a longevity clinic, do we need to use biological ages? And I believe that the majority of them said yes. Some of them said no, or they were not so sure. But I think this is one of the elements that coming from our roundtable that was very clear that actually this is some of the markers that should be.
And a few days before the roundtable of longevity, Frau Ruge. Some days before roundtable of longevity clinics took place at the Bach Institute, the consortium of biomarkers, but also very high-level scientists. And on your roundtable summit, Eric Verdun reported about that. What was his finding? What was his recommendation?
It was both Eric and Professor Andrea Myers, and Professor Myers has even done a presentation on some of those findings. The fact that the consortium exists, it's a very important step forward because there is a number of scientists and a number of industry professionals that are, and also providers of those biomarkers, part of this consortium. And they are going to be, they actually started working on validation of some of those biomarkers. So I would say this was also a bit of a kickoff meeting for the consortium to start. But definitely at our roundtables, we will be looking at results from this consortium because we need those biomarkers to be validated by scientists, but also they need to be validated in clinics. One by one, but also in correlation to each other.
But give me, please, a list of biomarkers you have to use in the clinic, in a longevity clinic. Glycan age, microbiome, epigenetic test. Please give me the list.
So I would say definitely you start with your blood because this is the simplest, including your hormones. But it should be in most of the clinics is about 40 to 50 different biomarkers that we look at that are really standard medicine. And this is a start. And then you look really at the cardiovascular health. So you use from AKG to much more sophisticated devices, depending on how many devices the clinic has. You can check your arterial stiffness for really the risk for stroke and for cardiovascular conditions. So cardiovascular, very important. Metabolic health and microbiome, very important because metabolic health first of all, obesity and also having problems with visceral fat, it's a very big factor for health, but also for longevity. So these are some of the standards. Hormonal therapies and also hormonal tests, very basic, but very important. Again, tests are very important. The quality of doctors that interpret the tests, it's even more important because today there's a lot of, and we see it in our clinic, many of our customers have problems with Hashimoto or certain autoimmune conditions, and they have been doing their tests, but if they go to a clinic that has 15 minutes per patient, they rather have patients than clients, then very often the doctors don't really see the tendencies. And it's very important to really observe your results in time as well, because there is a lot of indications much earlier that we could actually act. So these are some of the basic one. Microbiome, very, very important. And I see that most of the clinics are using microbiome. But also, as you see, all the biological ages, starting with epigenetic log. Genetics, we use genetic testing. Some companies are using, of course, full genome. Some of them focus on certain genomic tests. But definitely, a genomic predisposition is very important. Although we know that then epigenetic is important and everything that you do in lifestyle and that you can regulate your risks coming from your genetic predisposition. But definitely this is one of the golden standards that we also use. We look at genetics, but we also look at everything that happened since. Also, there's deeper dive in terms of oncological scores. So we are using OncoScore, also genetic tests for giving you a very detailed brief on your risk factors for oncological diseases. And then some companies are doing that and some companies are not focusing on psychological health. But for me and for my clinics, it will be very important because I see, and also for me personally, I want to be cognitively fit. I want to be in full control of my psychological safety. The psychological health and the emotional health and mental health are very important areas. So risk factors for neurodegenerative conditions, but also checking your current cognitive health is very important because we can do here a lot. And cognitive tests don't really measure only risk factors for dementia and Alzheimer, but they also a lot of changes with time and also with age that we notice and we think this is really aging, that we can actually regulate. Like, for example, for me, it was eye-opening the fact that for women, testosterone can actually influence our focus and concentration and memory. And therefore, I'm saying that a lot of those tests are very correlated. We had a great presentation by Dr. Mona from Fountain Life, but also Dr. Merck Hyman, and they are both representing functional medicine. And in functional medicine, for many years, they were actually looking at hormones, microbiomes. For me, these areas are very much interconnected. We had Dean Ornish, who is actually considered to be the father of lifestyle medicine. Again, lifestyle medicine for a long time was also struggling and being criticized by doctors that lifestyle is not medicine. Now, I think we see how much value there is in good quality of nutrition. And I'm not really saying diet, I'm really focusing on nutrition. It's not only about calories and what you eat, but really how good is this food for your health and again, there is so much personalization we can do in nutrition. And our nutrition can be connected to supplementation because we can't have everything it's more difficult in some places to really have all your nutrients from food only. So you can definitely also rely on some supplements. But again, what kind of supplements? How to select the right company that does it in the right way. Yeah, I think I got lost in my own
We are talking about biomarkers when you have a lot and then you want to read out everything and you need big data. And
exactly.
I guess you had Lee Hood, and Lee Hood is one of the most famous scientists also in big data in longevity diagnostics. So how you develop this huge field of big data in longevity clinics, and did you reach a really high-level system?
This is where a lot of the companies either struggle or we are looking for good systems to support, because we generate a lot of data per client. And this will be also systematic, because we really want to create a baseline for the client and do all those tests, but also we want to retest them after 6 months, 12 months. So there's going to be more and more data. And the more data we have per one person, we really need systems to help us to integrate, because one doctor doesn't have all this knowledge. In my company, we have a consortium of doctors, but definitely if we have great data platforms that are available for us and that are reliable as well for doctors to use, this would speed up the process also for our doctors to give the right recommendation, but also it will help them to give interpretations based on a number of thousands of different research criteria that they might not even have access to. And as you mentioned, Dr. Lee Hood, now with the Back Institute, they are working on the Phenom project. Is going to be also a very interesting area to follow. But definitely the data integration, data platforms, these are areas where most of the clinics are at the moment focusing on. And we do it separately, like every clinic does it in their own way, but also for the next event, I am already planning to invite a number of platform producers that can be supporting the clinics actually in analyzing those data. We need not only clinics and biomarkers there, but we also need providers of technology, of different solutions. For example, let's take sleep. We have different ways how we can measure quality of sleep, but there's so much more you can do with recommendations how to improve your sleep quality, and there's apps, there's technologies. Then stress, you can measure stress, you can measure your HRV level, for example, but then you want to manage it. You want to also use different ways how you stimulate your vagus nerve. And there's a lot of companies, again, that are popping up. Some of them are just startups focusing on this particular area, or bigger companies that are producing trackers and devices. So we also want to validate some of them, whether they work, whether they don't work, how to work with them in the medical setting. So we are getting also into an area where we need really new technologies to support us, and new technologies that are not only from medical devices producers, but also from wellness, from all those kind of well-being apps. And if you think about psychological age and also improving your working on meditation practices, or really to work on your mental health, we will need more and more solutions, stimulators and motivators that we could use and recommend to clients that they would be used by clinics. So on one side, data, but also there is space in this new field for many new companies to come and provide services as well.
And people would like to know everything about interventions, about supplements you recommend, about medication you recommend, about treatments like cold or oxygen or red light treatments.
Yeah.
And we don't have evaluated studies. Also, the orientation is not easy. What are you recommending? What's your range you offer?
There is more and more studies, and we are actually, first of all, my scientific director is looking at a lot of those studies, from cryo chambers to hyperbaric chambers to red light to floating to stimulation of the vagus nerve. We are looking at all those studies but usually studies are studying one of those points for one condition. So, which is very important, and it has to be validated. But we are trying to target different areas of our health. So we look at hallmarks of aging, of course. We want to focus on most of them. But also we want to prevent some of those conditions that are related with aging. So we have, for example, like with cryo chamber, hypercare chamber, red light, or different other stimulators for our skin quality. We are seeing how they actually work in combination, because you can achieve much more interesting results actually by combining therapies. And this is what we are focusing on at the moment, how we can work with and create protocols for better training, better regeneration, better like losing weight and really helping you to get into your shape by using combined therapies. So, for example, we start with, of course, diet. We start with the hormonal balance, but then we also can speed up certain processes. So we can, when our clients are starting losing weight, then we can also focus on the quality of skin, because at a certain age, you can't be losing weight without actually losing on your skin quality and or hair quality. And this, on one side, we really focus on health inside out, but also at the end of the day, the clients want to feel good, but they also want to look good.
Yeah.
So the combined therapies are really interesting. So we are also going to be publishing papers on that. There is a number of papers. They're not from longevity field, but they are from performance medicine. They are from preventive cardiology. They are from other areas. And we are definitely bringing some of those therapies that are not yet validated for longevity. And then they might never be validated directly for longevity, because it would mean that there's one therapy that influences lifespan. But actually, they might not directly influence lifespan, but they influence one of the hallmarks of aging. And this is already good enough for us to combine this therapy with other recommendations that we're giving to improve your health. Yes, definitely there's a lot more to be done. And there's a lot more to be done in collaboration with also sports centers, with preventive medicine centers, because we are really learning from other fields. And we are also bringing other fields into this new field of longevity medicine.
Mm-hmm. So you're close also to wellness center. You are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Feedback from the participants of your roundtable. Tell me about that.
Feedback was really excellent, and both from the speakers, and most of the speakers confirmed they want to participate next year, which is great and encouraging, and they want to have also other roles. But also the audience. In the audience, we had many more clinics. We had also certain people that wanted to really open clinics or see how they can find their place in the longevity field. So the feedback was very good, because for me as a non-scientist, although I have a huge respect from science and I'm working with scientists, but I'm not scientist. So as a clinic owner, I really wanted to go to a place where I can learn from clinics and more about practical applications. And therefore, I think we brought together people that wanted the same, and also we're looking for more practical applications. So how can we see this age science and longevity science, biomarkers of aging or hallmarks of aging, really being done in a practical way in clinics? And how can we see results of that? For example, I give you an example of Dr. Cooper, who was actually not joining us directly because he was online, but he's 92 years young, so he's not traveling anymore, but he's still seeing clients, and he's an amazing individual. So Dr. Cooper, for anybody that has to do with sports, they might know Cooper tests, which is a gold standard for any functional testing. He's also considered a father of aerobics. Now it sounds strange because everybody is running and jogging, and aerobics is actually part of our life. But when he started, and I think he was still working with NASA and US forces when he invented this term, he nearly lost his license because other doctors were considering this to be very dangerous for people to go and run and exhaust their bodies, because we have a limited number of breaths that we can take during our lifetime. This was actually the cardiologist of the time. And he will be causing a lot of increased mortality in his clients. Today, it's really, we take it for granted. And also he has seen, I think he's 100,000 clients. Since 50 years, his clinic is operational in Dallas. And the Cooper Clinic is also doing a number of different diagnostics, but they very much focus on sport medicine and on performance. And when I visited, I had a great privilege to visit Dr. Cooper Clinic. And then you go and see their gym. At the same time, there's about 1,000 people that can train at the same time. And the average customer that I saw there was over 65. And they were really all super fit. And it was so great to see it. People that just, flexible and at their best in an age that in some places you feel they should go and retire and I don't know, and really be focusing going from doctor to doctor. You can do it, and he's a living proof that you can do it. And so he has also published a number of studies because Cooper Institute is also a research institute, and they have published a lot of studies on how exercise is influencing your cardiovascular health, but also risk for Alzheimer and dementia. He said that most of his clients, vast majority, never had any problems with neurocognitive decline. And he has clients like, for example, President George Bush. He was his client during the presidency, before the presidency, and after the presidency. And so there's a lot to learn from those legendary doctors that have been specializing in one area of medicine, where we know that movement is the easiest and simplest intervention we have available. Not over-exercising, because again, over-exercising is not contributing to your longevity, unless you really have a very good regeneration practice and that you implement. But exercising every day for 20 minutes, this is his recommendation. He gave us also a list of, and I will be publishing this as well, he calls it how to get Cooperized. So he has about, I think, 15 or 16 different recommendations that he is giving. I'm going to be also sharing recommendations by Dr. Karov from Human Longevity. He had 7 recommendations he was sharing with us that are his recommendations for longevity. So we will share all this on our website, and they will be available as well for anyone to see.
We need these recommendations for our audience. So you started a new dimension of conference, and this conference will be in the future a very important one. And you are happy now.
I am very happy because we didn't really know how it will play out. I also had my doubts whether, competitors or theoretical competitors will really want to be open and sharing, but it seems that we all need these discussions, and we have already decided with Dr. Verdeen we are going to do it next year, also at the back, the same time as part of the Longevity Week at the back, but we are going to do it over 2 days. So it's going to be most probably Friday and Saturday, because we need many more speakers, and also we have packed a lot in this one day. It was a super day, but it was just a lot of information to process.
So thank you very much, and we need you.
Thank you, Nina, and you are an inspiration as well, and thank you for doing this in Germany, Switzerland, and in German-speaking area. It's also very needed what you're doing, communicating this to the wider public as well. I think this is what we need.
We need it. We need you, and we need us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Nina. It was great.